Perdón por interrumpirte, voy a ser súper breve. Soy Manu Casten, director de podcast y guionista en Juan Diego Network, y quiero saber algo de ti. ¿En alguna ocasión te has preguntado cosas como ¿por qué existe el mal? ¿Por qué Dios permitió que el demonio se rebelara contra él? ¿O qué tanto pueden hacer los espíritus en este mundo? El Más Allá de la Realidad, un viaje al mundo espiritual, es un podcast en el que puedes encontrar respuesta a esas y otras preguntas, y te invito a que lo escuches en tu plataforma favorita ahora que lo acabamos de estrenar. Te dejo el link aquí en la descripción para que terminando este episodio te lances a escucharlo. Ahora sí, ya me voy, que Dios te bendiga.
Hola a todos, soy Pilar Cortés y vengo a darles un notición. Este 7 de noviembre empieza la segunda temporada de mi podcast En Consulta Privada con Pilar Cortés. Por fin, después de estos 4 meses de break, estaremos de vuelta con nuevos casos de la vida real que nos van a servir para aprender conceptos súper importantes sobre salud mental, matrimonio y educación de los hijos. Te espero a partir del 7 de noviembre para encontrarnos en tu plataforma de música preferida. Te dejo el link en los show notes de este episodio.
Ya estamos de vuelta y este episodio de La Barba de Aarón es patrocinado nada más y nada menos que por Éxodo 90. Así es, escuchaste bien, Éxodo 90. Tengo el privilegio de haber podido entrevistar en este episodio especial de La Barba de Aarón a James Baxter, que no es nada más y nada menos que el CEO de Éxodo 90, con quien tuvimos una conversación padrísima acerca de la figura de Aarón. Ahora, antes de empezar a grabar, James me comentó que jamás en su vida le habían preguntado acerca de la figura de Aarón en el Éxodo. Entonces eso me hizo sentir bastante bien acerca de este podcast. Y bueno, te debo avisar que la entrevista está en inglés. Lamentablemente James pues no habla español. Y ojalá pudiéramos tener alguna especie de subtitulaje aquí para ustedes, pero lo siento mucho, no será el caso. Entonces les dejo aquí la entrevista con James Baxter, en donde platicamos acerca de la hombría, de la fraternidad, de las relaciones, la importancia de tener un programa de avance y cómo el Éxodo nos va mostrando la narrativa de la historia de hombría de cada uno de nosotros, y es una historia preciosa y valiosísima que podemos cada uno de nosotros encontrar y apreciar. Esos son algunos de los highlights del episodio. Entonces los dejo para que escuchen esta entrevista de La Barba de Aarón, pero como quieran no olviden de buscar ahí aquí en los show notes, pero también en la página de Éxodo 90, cómo te puedes involucrar y cómo puedes entrar a participar de este reto de 90 días que empieza la próxima semana, el 17 de enero. Así que no te lo pierdas, por favor, métete en este momento al link de la página de Éxodo 90 y conoce un poco más de qué es este súper reto que inspiró en muchas maneras todo lo que hacemos aquí en La Barba de Aarón. Entonces, bueno, ahora sí, sin más preámbulo, los dejo para que escuchen la entrevista con James Baxter. Bienvenido a La Barba de Aarón. Mi nombre es Luis Diego Carranza. Y en este podcast estamos buscando redescubrir la hombría y la masculinidad a través de lo que la Biblia tiene que decirnos acerca de ambos temas. Así que prepárate un trago o caliéntate un café y siente cómo el aceite baja por tu barba. Esto es La Barba de Aarón. James Baxter, welcome to the show.
Luis, it's a joy. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to have you here. And now, well, let's just jump right into it. I guess that we're going to talk about what you do and who you are as we go through the conversation. But yeah, so a lot of the work that you do revolves around the story of Exodus. You know, your company is named Exodus 90. So, and here in the podcast, we love meditating, I guess, on the figure of Aaron, you know, Moses' brother, who is it takes an interesting part in the whole story and narrative of the Exodus. So I'd like to hear your thoughts as a man, but also as a theologian and philosopher. What are your thoughts on his main setbacks and virtues? Like, what's the role that Aaron plays in the story? I'm not interested in the, biblical scholar kind of response, but in the things that you can point to us as who this guy is as a man, you know?
Yeah, so first off, love being here, Luis. Thanks so much. The intro music's just bopping. You're crushing it. It's super exciting. Awesome brand and everything.
Thank you.
I would say taking a step back, the whole story to me is just such a moving metaphor, I think, for men. And I'm talking about the whole book of Exodus, I think, today, which is, I think, part of what's attracted so many in such a short period of time to it. Aaron. So in my 7 years of doing this, no one has asked me my thoughts on Aaron before. So
I know.
Let's just see what you get today. First thing,
yes.
Aaron has always been close to me in my reading of the story because my best friend is named Aaron.
Wow.
In so many ways, like I found my life kind of stuck in this story before,
right.
and like I've needed his support and help throughout it. And so I must confess that I've thought a lot more about Moses than I have. But just the fact that, you know, my close friendship with him kind of says something. I think, you know, a big part of our work at Exodus is fraternity and building brotherhoods and hopefully bringing men out of isolation, you know, out of kind of lives that are, you know, trapped and lonely and into light, you know, not into perfection. I mean, all of us struggle, all of us fall off the path, but into brotherhood. And when I look at Moses' prayer to the Lord at the beginning, which I've sympathized with so many times over the last couple of years, I'm just so struck by how God answers that with a brother, and God answers that prayer prayer for a mouthpiece with a friend. And there's just something so beautiful. So when I think of Aaron, I think of friendship, I think of brotherhood, and you know, the relationship that they had, which obviously had ups and downs. I can't even imagine how down it is as Moses comes off the mount. You know, there's just something so powerful, I think, in that's important for men to remember. Like, this Christian life is impossible without brothers.
Exactly.
So those are some great thoughts.
Yeah. That's good, because I think, since that, as I was reviewing the Exodus story today, like I encountered that passage when, you know, Moses feels so impotent on the whole mission. And the Lord sends Aaron, and also, like, in all of this, Aaron's just there in the narrative. Like, he's not a guy who usually takes initiatives, so he just follows along. And whenever he does take initiatives, things don't go out the right way. You know, specifically speaking of the golden calf issue, you know. But in this idea of responding and forming part of something that wasn't his own initiative, I think being the second one there, I think that has to do with rediscovering masculinity as well, because sometimes we think we need to make our own path, and sometimes it's a lot more of discovering what someone else has done. You know, go back to the old ways and old traditions to rediscover how that brings a sense today. It's maybe not something that you invented, but it's something that you're being invited to become part of. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, totally. I mean, and it's just like, think about how much in your life you don't create.
Right.
You know, I mean, everyone talks about being like self-made people and defining things for themselves. And I'm just struck time and time again. I think this is because I have small children, by how like the most important things are given to you. And, you know, I would say that's just rings true for me in so many places where, you know, it's not just about gripping your, you know, white knuckling things. It's not just about, you know, figuring it out. It's about accepting what you've been given and working from within that place of acceptance.
Wow.
You know, but the other thing here too is just like, you know, you need others. Like, you need friendships, spiritual friendships, to like help you on your way. And I don't know, like, just think about this. It's like, if God doesn't answer Moses' prayer through Aaron, like, what happens? You know, it probably doesn't happen, or it does, but in a different way. You know, and at least in my own life, there's been times when I've struggled with real loneliness, and I've called out to God, and he's always answered with a face of a person. So anyway, I just see something in that.
Awesome.
That
Yeah.
powerful.
And I also want to go back to that passage, you know, right after the burning bush episode, when Moses is headed towards Egypt, and then Aaron, like the Exodus reading says that Aaron got a word from God and said, "Go meet your brother in the desert." Like, it actually goes back to him and says, "Go," and he goes really joyful and meets his brother, and that's wonderful. And I think that's very related to what you guys are doing with Exodus 90, because it's a lot about encountering your brothers in the desert. So I guess that has a beautiful meaning too, because, you know, we go to this desert away from distractions, away from comfort, and find ourselves with our brothers trying to do God's will, trying to go towards freedom, becoming better men. So I don't know, like if you want to, you know, go through how fraternity plays this like super important role in what Exodus 90 does. I understand why that is, but I don't know if there's anything else to, you know, how that plays out day to day in Exodus. Like, if you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so our work at Exodus is not self-help work. We believe in the power of fraternities. Anthony Eslin has this quote. He says, "A soldier alone is not a soldier, or a soldier alone is no soldier."
Right.
And I think that's just so important. I even think about, our little team here at Exodus. There's seven men now involved, which is pretty amazing. And every year the burden gets a little bit lighter because there are others in the work with you, offering their gifts and their talents, and that's super powerful. So yeah, during Exodus, guys invite, men in their lives. That can be guys at the parish, guys at work, guys in the neighborhood, to make this journey, to greater freedom in our Lord. And, that's important because you need brothers to, I think, do a couple of things for you. Number one is to encourage you, because it's just so easy to be overcome by our own weaknesses, our own sins, our struggles, the ways we're not living up to our calling. And I find that in a true fraternity, founded on the gospel, there's a lot of mercy in that space. Others have a way of seeing you way more clearly than you do. And I think that's really, really pretty powerful. So a lot of mercy and encouragement can come from that. But at the same time, it can't just be about that. There's got to be a challenging dimension, and something I've been saying recently, or was kind of observing recently, was there's times when my wife really calls me on, and it's really good for me. Mm-hmm. There are times when she's too merciful with me than I need to be. And I find that the guys in my life are just hey, that's not acceptable. You can't say things like that, or you can't not pray. How can you be the husband and the father you're called to be? And, I don't think, I don't know what you think about this, Luis, but I don't look at our work at Exodus if you don't do it, you're not a man. I don't think about it that way at all. At the same time, I just find that and so I don't like threats over the internet to people do this or you're not a man. I don't know. It just doesn't get me going.
Yes.
But when you know someone and you love someone and you know what they're going through, their sins and their struggles, there you have what you need, in relationship, both to encourage and to challenge when he can be, can be offering more, So in Exodus, our guys meet every week for a fraternity meeting, simple structure for prayer, and accountability. But then you check in with an anchor. That's what we call kind of the other guy you're paired with that, you just, how was prayer today? What was a grace you received? What was something that stuck out, from your reading of Exodus? What's an ascetic practice you're struggling with, whatever it may be. So, Exodus apart from fraternity doesn't make any sense to me, and that's why it's such a fundamental component of our work. And I think it's only growing in importance. I think a lot of people, when we look at the last couple of years, are really isolated, really alone. And I think some friendships have really waned in this time. And it's our hope that that's brought back to life through our work at Exodus.
Awesome. That's so powerful, man. I think, from what you were saying, there's no notion of actually being able to come to the fulfillment of who we are as men without other men. It's not much about doing all these different things and, reaching certain standards of manhood. It's more of the journey of discovering who you are. And who you are is directly related to the identity the Lord has given you as a man. So I don't know, it's wonderful that it's also related to the mission of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do it. No one else can do it. And I think this friendship between Moses and Aaron kind of symbolizes that. And a mission, so yeah, you may have different moments when you doubt, moments when you fail, but there's still always that encouragement from God that He wants to use you. He wants to use your brokenness, your flaws. And it's wonderful. And I think of this moment. I don't know what day it is from the Exodus 90 program when we come to the story of the golden calf, right? And Aaron plays such an important role in that, and it's so sad because he's just pushed by the people. The people want to worship something, so he makes up this golden calf. And when Moses comes down, he just blames it on everyone. And it's kind of the same attitude that Adam had when he fell from in the garden with Eve. It's the same attitude, okay, so this woman that you gave me, she made me sin. So Aaron says, this people, they made me sin. So I just put all the gold in here and this golden calf came out. So it's interesting to see how in the midst of our mission, we may even have setbacks. We may have also moments of failure. We may have also moments when we fall way too short even in like direct sinfulness. So what would you say are the greatest challenges someone doing Exodus 90 might face? I guess as well as feeling like, okay, so I'm doing all these things that makes me a better person, or okay, I haven't been able to deal with these different practices. I remember for me, when I made Exodus 90 last year, it was exercise. Like finding time and the right mood for doing exercise was just so hard. And part of me felt guilty that, okay, I can't live up to the whole standard of what this is requiring from me. What are your thoughts on that, James?
No, it's an awesome and honest question. Exodus does propose a real structure, like a rule of life. And, when you look at it, it can seem like a lot, like at the outset. And even in it, it's like there are parts of it that are challenging. And then there are parts of it that are not challenging at all. And what's interesting is every guy is different, and kind of what stands out. And my general thoughts on this are just like, hey, no one achieves this. Like no one is perfect in this. And that's literally not the point at all. It's just like kind of returning to some principles in the church that have been forgotten that definitely help to kind of create that space for God. The thing I would say is just like, you don't get in your exercise. It's not like you've committed a sin. It's just like, hey, maybe next week, maybe we can try that out, because physical fitness, taking care of your temple, is important. And there's just no way around that. And what you find is when you do, it actually and you do that work on the natural level, it makes room for God on a supernatural level, to transform you. And so I would just say that it's not something to be overcome by grief or guilt by if you can't quite live up to it. Everybody fails it, if that's your definition of failure, which is why I think we need to kind of reframe it as like, hey, this is a standard we're striving for, we're doing our best at, and that's why your fraternity is there, to give you that kind of simple, honest perspective.
Nice. Thank you so much. And I think that really takes the weight off many people's shoulders who can't, get a perfect day for 90 days. And that's the thing. See, I've been trying to review the whole story of Aaron through the Exodus story as we're covering this show. And now, after the golden calf, you see Aaron becomes kind of like this super important priestly figure. So he's part of he's actually the first high priest of Israel. It's not Moses. That's interesting. And I guess, I don't know, like thinking of how God gave them something as exigente. I get the word in English. As demanding as the law. And Aaron's put right in front of there. Like, it's interesting because he's not the main figure of things. He's not supposed to be the one who gets the word directly of the word from God, but he's the one that's supposed to bring the sacrifice to the Lord. I think
it is so interesting, right? Because like, let's be real, a lot of people die after this event, and Aaron is spared through Moses's prayer, basically. And then he's given this high priestly task.
Yes.
Okay. So like, what is that an image of? Well, number one, the first thing I can't help but think of is just priests today. Priests are, chosen among men, like with a special task, that all of them, when they're honest with themselves, know that they're not worthy of. And a priest that's grounded on any kind of truth will be the first to tell you that. All of my priest friends would say that, but without them, like, we wouldn't have access to like fundamental mysteries of the faith. And it's almost like the whole vocation is grounded on that kind of humility, or it should be, that I think really bears the most fruit as well, and I would say as well, one of the other things about Aaron that I reflect on a lot is how maybe all of us are more like Aaron than we are like Moses, because like, it's Jesus Christ who's accomplished the redemption of the world. Like, it's we who participate in his saving actions, when we're called, when we're living into who we're called to be, as his people. And, I think that kind of takes some of the weight off too. It's like, I think about this regularly. It's just like, Lord, I have no idea how this is going to work. I have no idea why so many people are doing this. I can't even believe this. And it's so important for me. Like, all I got to do is just like hold up the Lord's hand. All I got to do, is meet him in the desert. Just look at him and let him save, let him move. And I think there's a consolation in that, that it's Christ who's accomplished everything for us. We fortunately, as sons of the Father through our baptism, are just called to represent that and invite others into that same saving mystery.
Wow. That's wonderful. And I think we can get a lot from analyzing and meditating on the figure of Aaron, as we've seen, like the friend who's there to help his brother do his mission. Now Aaron, the priest, who is also a representative, and he brings the sacrifice and the offering and partakes in all this, this very important part of the life of the people of God. And Aaron, the sidekick, he's not the main character. And I like that the whole idea of sidekicks was actually the first 10 episodes of the show was just analyzing the different sidekicks in the whole Bible. So we had Peter, we had Barnabas, who's, they're guys that were just there, Paul, like it's Paul and Silas, right? So Silas, who was this guy? Like, what did he do? And all these different sidekicks have this thing in common, that they don't mind being part of something greater. And I guess, if there would be, like, I guess an idea to wrap this whole thing up, is realizing how as men we can partake in something greater than ourselves that doesn't necessarily have to be our own initiative. And it's obviously not. We're sidekicks in the story of salvation, right? We're sidekicks in God's own story of saving the world and humanity, and we can partake in that great work. That gives me a lot to think about. I don't know if you want to add anything to this conversation.
No, I love that. And I like to think of myself that way too. I mean, this whole thing was not my idea. It started as a seminary formation experiment that a friend of mine started. And I'm just like, all right, just like keep moving day by day, just kind of sharing about it and just watching what would unfold. And, I just think that there's a lot of opportunity for humility there that the Lord can bless and work with. And, it's hard for me not to return to just my friend Aaron and be so grateful for him too in this whole thing. And, that's why Aaron is so special to me in the story.
Wow. And I guess a question I'd have was, as you see that this thing is growing and getting larger and larger and impacting the lives of men all around the world, like, how do you embrace decisions that are as big as that, like something that can take this thing sideways and can go down? Or like, how do you embrace questions and confusion that you may get sometimes? I don't know, because I guess a lot of us often struggle with that, right? Like we know what God's plan is, but sometimes when the decisions are up to us, we're not sure how to move things,
Absolutely. It's an awesome question. It's really a discernment question. So, over here, for us, it's really important to stay grounded in the prayer, the ascetic, the fraternal life that we talk about. So, we talk about that as a team a lot, just to make sure we're this is a big time of year for us. 90 days to Easter is always it, so this year our start date's January 17th. So yes, everything in the last year has been, preparing for these couple of days. Mm-hmm. And, but we talk fourth quarter always just like, hey, like, let's remember why, let's be before the Lord and allow him to shape our minds, shape our words, everything. Because at the end of the day, this is about his glory and the freedom of his men. But the other thing is, like, when you commit to working in men's formation, it's like there is nothing that has been more obviously and subtly attacked by the devil over the last 50 years than manhood. And to be so real, it's like, we know we are dealing in serious, like, spiritual work. And so sometimes, that's why, like, living in the light, being accountable is so important, asking for help. When we're making decisions, the other thing, I regularly just take it to our leadership team, take it to people outside of me. Working at here, it's like every day I'm faced with new obstacles that I've never been through before. And I'm learning every single day, but I'm really quick to ask for help, and I'm really quick to call up mentors, talk to, I have a spiritual director, actually I do therapy regularly, as well, talk to a therapist, and all of these things kind of help you find the truth and help keep you centered, and grounded. And so I guess I would say, like, it's just not on you to figure out, look at the story, it's like, it's just not. And there's a consolation and a freedom that comes from that acceptance. I suppose it takes some humility to believe that. Like if you want to be the self-made man and you want to, get all the glory, well, that probably doesn't sound very great, but as Christians, we're called to something different than that.
Amen. Thank you so much, James. And that's really powerful. I think, a lot of us can find wisdom in especially day-to-day decisions. And I don't know, in my case, working with things that are related to, the church and evangelization, you oftentimes feel like that. Things will depend on you, and you don't know if this is you making a decision or this is the Lord's path, right? But thank you. And if I always like to close these episodes with a challenge, like one practical challenge that you can leave men. Of course, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
This question of how do I know if this is God or how do I know if this is me? One of the things that I do as a practice personally is when I wake up in the morning, I try to spend just like 10, 20 minutes on a natural level. I'm not praying. I'm just silent. I'm just like, how am I doing today? Like, what am I thinking about? What am I feeling? What am I nervous about? And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, like there's a lot that goes on inside. We're pretty complicated. And that helps me to just like situate like, okay, this is where I'm at. From that place, then I go to prayer. And that's when I start, spending time with the Father, spending time with the Son, spending time with the Holy Spirit. And one of the things that and this was their spiritual director that I realized was there's times where I'd have these anxieties or whatever. And I was making a decision and I'd be like, oh, I just don't know, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, well, have you asked Jesus Christ about this? This question, not like in the abstract, but this question. And I was like, no, I've just talked about it. And I've just talked about it to a lot of people. So I think it's helpful to do that. But then I also think it's really helpful to just go before the Lord, be like, hey, I'm asking you a question. And he's a divine person.
Yes.
And persons speak, and persons move, and persons inspire. And, that's what I found over and over again. And sometimes with my biggest decisions that have entailed the biggest changes, like actually the next step's pretty clear because we asked. So
awesome. Wow. That's really helpful. Thanks so much, James. Yeah. And I agree. I think depending on others' wisdom and not relying on your own scope of wisdom and things is definitely a trait of a good man, regardless of, faith-wise. But yeah. Thank you so much. All right, so let's close up with a challenge. So one challenge that you can leave, and if you want, the challenge can be Exodus 90. Like you could definitely recommend that. But if there was like something, like one practical thing that you could also recommend, that would be great.
Yeah, why don't we just leave what I just said as the challenge? Like next time you're faced with a question or a discernment, like just really clearly, you might even write it down, and then just go before the Blessed Sacrament, or if you can't do that, just ask the Lord and just see what comes. It takes some time to build some of that confidence, maybe, confidence in your own prayer even, which I think is a really important thing and a good thing. But I think that would be my challenge today.
Great. Thank you so much, James. There you have it, friends. So this was James Baxter, Exodus 90. I highly recommend you guys to go to exodus90.com and check out the whole challenge. And yes, enroll to the January 17th new enrollment for this coming year. And it ends in Easter, right? Yes.
That's right. Journeys through Lent to end on Easter Sunday.
Yes.
And we've been working a lot over the last couple of years on rolling out a whole biblical series now, so guys can continue their journey through the Bible with different but prayer, ascetic, fraternal components that make Exodus so special. So.
Awesome. That's perfect. All right, guys, that was it for today, and I'll see you all next week. God bless. No te pierdas ningún episodio de La Barba de Aarón. Suscríbete a nuestro newsletter semanal en barba.jdn.app/barba y recibirás un correo cada vez que se lance un nuevo episodio. Eso es barba.jdn.app/barba. Puedes encontrarme en Instagram y seguirme como el podcast barbudo, pero por favor, te invito a que me escribas y me digas qué te está pareciendo todo esto, si te gustan o no te gustan los episodios, tienes alguna recomendación, etc. Puedes escribirme a luisdiego@juandiegonetwork.com o mandarme mensaje directo por Instagram. Si quieres echarme una mano extra, por favor apóyame dando un review de 5 estrellas en Apple y suscribiéndote en tu plataforma favorita de podcasts. Bueno, nos vemos la próxima semana. Dios te bendiga.